Today, a lot of organizations, users still have to go to SharePoint or they have to go to the intranet to experience it. But people work in Outlook. People work, especially today with COVID, in Microsoft Teams. So we need to bring those experiences to where they work, bring it to them instead of having them go to some other place.
To Lead is a remote-first company based out of Canada.
What makes a world-class Microsoft 365 intranet and digital workplace?
Now there's two examples I have here that are substantially different, but the core concept's the same. Essentially, I'm in Microsoft Teams, and on the left rail, I have an app experience. I essentially click on that experience, and now I see my intranet experience. I see all of those core parts of my digital hub that are strategically important to me. Now, of course, I could easily have, instead of this welcome, I could have something like the global nav as the first item, and then the welcome, and so on and so forth. The key concept here is we can build really compelling experiences, and we can bring them into Microsoft Teams with relatively low effort, and then that can actually enable organizations to benefit from these intranets and these experiences without leaving Teams. And that's an important change, especially because that's the app and tool they're using all the time. What's more, you can see an example here where even configuring these tools, I don't want it to be perceived as just a consumption-oriented experience, even doing things like changing the properties of web parts and things like that, you could potentially design experiences like that by just how you build your controls so that they also show up inside of Microsoft Teams. And whether that's in a particular project or a particular Microsoft team or channel, or whether it's at an organizational level, like the one you see on the left example here. Now, this is one example of kind of taking this to the world-class level. There's other ways to do this as well. And by the way, even if you have an out-of-the-box intranet and you don't do any of these things that we're talking about, you could still bring it into Teams. So please do that. So here's another example that shows you that Power Panel experience with a different look and feel inside of Microsoft Teams. And there's ways that this is changing and improving over time. So here you would, sorry, I'm not sure why it's not showing there, but you'd have an app, the same idea as before. And then you have that Power Panel experience, you have the navigation experience as well. In this particular example of how the Live Tiles Teams does it is you actually see the content as you navigate each of these nodes showing up below. So this is a really great way of bringing all that stuff we mentioned earlier, the personalization, the targeting, things, the policies you need to action, the news that's important to you, and so on and so forth, bringing that all into one place, in this case, Microsoft Teams, so you can just go and experience that right away. This kind of capability is definitely world-class, and the advantage of something like Live Tiles is it's very, very easy to implement. We're talking about hours to implement something like this at an organizational level versus, many days to implement maybe something a little bit more customized. All right. That's another example where we might want to bring solutions, in this case, digital workplace solutions and the intranet experiences to where people work. Today's session is going to be about what makes a world-class Microsoft 365 intranet and digital workplace. We're going to be covering a lot today, so if you haven't heard me or seen me present before, be ready for a pretty brisk pace, kind of drinking from the fire hose. Today, if you have any questions, you can ask them within the webinar itself in Microsoft Teams. Alternatively, you can always send an email or reach out and we can have a one-on-one discussion, because of course these kinds of sessions are great, but they're not very prescriptive because I can't understand exactly your current state, whereas if we had a one-on-one call, we could dig in a little bit deeper. In addition to that, I do want to highlight that the slides are available on SlideShare right now, and there will be a recording of this webinar available. And if you're one of the people who are listening to the recording, thanks for giving me some time today. So with that,